Hi, everyone, and welcome to Dead to Rights, the podcast video for the crime genre industry. Today, I'm going to be bringing you an interview with a very interesting author by the name of Gary Phillips. And if you go to his website, garyphillips.com, and that's Phillips with two L's, you're going to find that it really is quite interesting and unique. I think he would consider himself an author of pulp fiction, and I'll let his website speak for itself. And I'm now going to bring Gary on the line with us. So please give a big Dead to Rights welcome for Gary Phillips. Hi, Gary. Good to meet you, and welcome to Dead to Rights.
Oh, well, thank you, Donna. Thank you. I guess it's sunny and bright there in Toronto, is it?
It's very bright. It's very hot. It's really quite something. We're experiencing a heat wave that is completely un-Canadian in nature.
Oh, I see. I see. Here we go.
Where exactly are you located?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow. So you're used to this kind of heat and sunshine.
Yes, I'm very much a LA. I was born and raised here, and when I go to cold places such as Toronto or New York in the winter, I suffer greatly. I love the heat.
I bet it's hard to reacclimatize. It really is.
Yes.
We get some very hot summers here, no question. But I think the last couple summers have really kind of beat the bank with it. It's really been quite something.
Yes.
Now, I was visiting your website. What a fantastic place! That's really quite.
Well, I've got to update it. But my wife is the technical person, so we got to spend some time and get it back in shape.
It looks really interesting, really very, quite wonderful. I was saying in the intro that it's well worth visiting. Would you consider yourself an author of pulp fiction? Is that?
No, I guess I'm primarily an author of hard-boiled crime fiction, but certainly in the context, or I guess in the side venue of that, I certainly am part of what they call, I guess now they call it the new pulp movement. But yes, so certainly some of what I write is pulp fiction, and certainly I think some pulp sensibilities show up in some of my other work.
Well, hard-boiled and noir is a favorite of mine. I really enjoy it. So tell me a little bit about your latest novel. For starters, what is it called? I know that it features a Matthew Henson, but what is the novel called?
The novel is called Matthew Henson.
Oh, it is.
It's called it's Matthew Henson and the Ice Temple of Harlem. So it has a very pulp kind of name. And it's set, and as we mentioned, Henson was a real life figure, but like a lot of things we do here in America, Donna, we like to reinvent them in mythic proportions.
I had noticed that. That trend.
Right. And so in that vein, I have now, I think the term is retconned, where you go back in and you redo the character. I have now reimagined, retconned Mr. Henson in a story that is set in the tail end of the Roaring '20s, specifically 1928, during what was called the Harlem Renaissance in Harlem in New York, and sort of an intellectual and artistic time during that period. And so in this story, he encounters the likes of gangster Dutch Schultz. Nikola Tesla shows up. Bessie Coleman, who was America's first black aviatrix, is his buddy, and she helps him out in this matter, as well as several other figures, historical figures. Queenie St. Clair, I should also mention, who was a very interesting woman, the numbers queen, a numbers boss of Harlem. And Dutch Schultz is trying to take over the numbers racket. That's sort of one of the subplots in the book. So all that's in the mix of this, very much a pulp kind of action adventure story.
I'm certainly familiar with Dutch because I've interviewed true crime authors from time to time.
Oh, right on.
And they like to talk about Dutch, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's Matthew Henson and the Ice Sculpture of
the Ice Temple of Harlem.
The Ice Temple of, I knew I was getting that wrong. So
that's all right.
Temple of Harlem. Okay. And is this part of a series?
Well, we're going to see, Donna. As you know, in the book business, it all depends on the sales. So this is the first one I'm hoping that there are more to come. I have some notion of possibly doing a graphic novel as a kind of
Mhm.
sequel to this prose version, but we'll see. We'll see. But yes, one way or the other, I think Matthew will show up in something else down the line.
He sounds like a fascinating character. And we had recently read, and I cannot come up with the title or even the author. If I could, you'd know it. I'm sorry for drawing a blank. But set in that same time period,
Yeah.
the gangster kind of era. And everybody in my family tore through the book. We all just loved it. And
Oh, yeah.
it's only because I'm interested in speaking with you, and so I'm drawing a blank on anything else. Sorry. Let's put it that way. Instead of
Exactly. That's right.
just saying I'm having a blonde moment or something.
Right, that's it. Let's just call it that, Donna. That's right. That's right. Well, it'll come back, but when it comes back, it'll be in the middle of something else, or it'll be in the middle of the night. And then, yeah, that's right. That's right.
And then
Yeah.
I'll have to drop you an email. Oh, it was.
Oh, that's what it was. Exactly.
Oh, you'll have heard of it for sure. Yeah.
That's it.
Being in that genre, exactly. Tell me a little bit about how you came up with this website of yours. I've been looking at it here this afternoon, and it's really quite the labyrinth.
Yeah, I think that's a bit unintentional. I guess at some point we need to, and believe me, we actually did, but there's been already now, I guess maybe, oh my goodness, maybe already a year ago, we went back through and kind of got rid of some dead weight and some links that didn't work anymore and what have you. Well, I've been in this crime fiction game since, I guess I've been published since 94. Yeah, so 94. So what is that? 26 years, whatever,
Yeah,
however many
26
years.
years,
That's right. So however many years that is, and so somewhat, so you tend to accumulate quite a few things, and not just novels, but I've published a good many short stories, as well as edited several anthologies. So that stuff is just sort of accumulated over time. So I guess to some extent, I suppose the website represents that.
That's how I know a writer's writer, when you're into the anthologies,
Yeah, exactly.
Because we all start out, at least so many of us, I shouldn't be presumptuous, but many of us start out not really drawn to short stories until we really start getting our teeth into the art of the writing, and then we realize it really is all about the short story. That's where the novels come from.
You're right. Absolutely. I could not agree more. Absolutely. And also I might add that for me, the short stories are a way to sometimes experiment a little bit and change up the form and fool around with point of view and things I might not do in a novel, or things I might not be able to sustain in a novel.
Exactly.
I think you can.
And there are ways for writers to communicate with each other too.
Exactly.
I find like this is how we kind of network, and we're like birds in the trees. This is how we talk to each other.
Right.
Through our short stories,
Exactly.
It's like our calling cards. Yeah.
No, that's right. It's true.
Yeah. So anybody who wants to get to know Gary Phillips a little better, please look up some of his short stories. Where have they appeared? Give us a couple of.
Well, I have a good segue for that, Donna. Just so happens, currently there are, I believe, 3 anthologies that are out now that have a short story of mine. One is called "The Faking of the President," 19 stories of White House noir.
A little timely, or what?
Yeah, exactly. So that actually came out a couple of months ago from Three Rooms Press in New York, and so it's been doing quite well. In fact, they got a lovely write-up, I believe, in last weekend's New York Times book review. So I have a short story in that. I have a short story that just came out in another, or I have a short story in an anthology that just came out called "Low Down Dirty Vote 2."
Okay.
See a certain theme in my
short trend emerging.
Trend. Now that just came out from Berry Press, and that, as the name suggests, all the stories have to do with. Actually, all the stories have to do with sort of protecting the vote and voter suppression efforts and what have you in this country, in the States. And in that case, the proceeds from that book, I believe, are to go to benefit the Southern Poverty Law Center, which helps to fight against voter suppression efforts.
Okay, okay, so that's a really good cause. Tell me the title of that one again. It's Low Down Dirty Vote 2, is it?
That's it. Low Down Dirty Vote 2.
Okay, because you know you got to repeat things for listeners, eh?
Exactly. No, that's good. That's right. That's
I've
good.
learned. The first one was
The Faking of the President.
Faking of the President. Yeah.
Second one now is Low Down Dirty Vote 2.
Good.
And the third and last one, Bringing Up the Rail, is even I'm blanking on. No, I've got it. Stop the World: Snapshots from a Pandemic. How about that?
Oh, okay. Which is what we're doing. You know, this is all about the pandemic.
That's right. That's exactly all about the pandemic. Exactly.
Catch writers where they live, you know. Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you this, Donna. In that case, in that particular anthology, the Stop the World Snapshots from a Pandemic anthology, this gets back to our short story discussion, or it's all about short stories. In that short story, it's not a crime short story. It is more of a kind of Twilight Zone short story because I wanted to play with it a little bit, and because it had to be really a short story. It came out to be a little more than 2,000 words, which is pretty short. Mm-hmm. And so in that case, I want to fool with some notions of more of a science fiction kind of nature, and so that's what the story is that I did for that.
I love Twilight Zone.
I
love Twilight Zone. And,
exactly.
You know, I really encourage our kids to go back and look at some of the Twilight Zone because this is how you write a short story.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
It's really how you do it, isn't it?
That's right. That's true. Yeah. Very true. Very true. And give them that grabber ending.
Exactly. Every single time, and memorable. Because you know, I would have just been a baby watching. I'm not trying to pretend I'm young. I'm not young. But even though I'm not young, I still would have just been a baby watching Twilight Zone.
Exactly.
All these years.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So that's how you grab them for sure.
That's how you grab them.
Writer's tip for today.
You
gotta leave them with a hook.
There you go. That's it. That's right. There you go, Donna. Okay, kids. There's your lesson for today. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. So stop the world.
Stop the world. Snapshots from a pandemic.
Perfect. I love that. I love that. What I've been trying to do with this season of Dead to Rights is really just catch writers where they live because we're all shut down with this pandemic. And I thought, you know, let's capture it somehow. Let's record it and, you know, get it out there. So that's really wonderful. You've got the 3 anthologies coming out and you've got Matthew Henson. And why did you choose? I've got a question list here.
All right.
Enough. You may recognize some of these questions. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you, and you may recognize some of these questions. Why did you choose Matthew Henson for the myth treatment?
Yeah, I think, you know, as we mentioned before, you know, we go in for the myth treatment here in America in a big way, particularly for
think Quentin Tarantino.
Yes, think Quentin Tarantino, or even just think, you know, heroes of the Old West, you know, Wild Bill Hickok or Annie Oakley. All of them are, you know, became larger in life, you know, as the dime novels and the penny dreadfuls flourished, right? Mm-hmm. Deadwood Dick. Actually, several cowboys, black and white, used the name Deadwood Dick. And so I think thinking about that, and then thinking about I wanted to somehow do a pulp novel. Like I said, I've done several sort of pulp or new pulp short stories, but I'd done a novella. But I really kind of wanted to see, well, all right, let's see if I can really do the form in a long form kind of way. Mm-hmm. And for some reason or another, and I've known about Matthew Henson, I guess, since I was a kid, also understanding that Matthew Henson never got the accolades that were due him, I thought, well, who's better suited for you know, this mythic treatment than Mr. Henson? And so I kind of, once I got to that, then I read his book, which had been published in 1912, you know, post he and Perry and the 4 Inuit gentlemen reaching the North Pole. Mm-hmm. It's actually called A Negro at the North Pole. And it's not really a memoir. It's really kind of just his recounting of that time. And it's a fairly sanitized, not quite the word I use, but fairly tame in its telling. So then as I do a little bit more research, sure enough, I encounter a kind of Hensonologist. He was a professor. He was a hard science professor at Harvard, but he was a big Henson fan. His name was S. Allen Counter. And Professor Counter wrote a book called, I think it's called Black, White, and Eskimo. And in that book, he tells the tale, which apparently was, I guess, somewhat of an open secret. It turns out that both Perry and Henson had Inuit children.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they're very long nights there in the North Pole.
Well, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And so once I knew that, and in Encounter's book, he actually goes back up to Greenland and finds these. I mean, at that point, this is in the 1980s, and these guys, the sons, are in their 80s. But he finds them and he brings them back to be feted in the United States and what have you. But anyway, but then also in his book, he kind of goes more into what actually Henson went through on those, it was like the 8th expedition when they finally reached the pole. So there was a lot of efforts to try to reach the pole. So with that in mind, and plus then one great thing that I knew I could use for the pulp aspect, and this is true, this is also true, they brought back from that village in Greenland this massive meteorite that had crashed there. They figured it crashed there about 10,000 years ago, because when they were first in the village, they saw that the Inuit men and were making their spears and what have you and axes, but they had iron, but there's no iron deposits in that part of the territory. And but Henson, who also spoke several of the Inuit languages, found out about the meteorite, and so they bring this meteorite, or pieces of this meteorite, this massive meteorite, back to the States, which helped to fund further expeditions. But once I knew that, once I had that element as along with the other elements, I thought, well, this is great. This can make a fascinating. I can spin this into a fascinating yarn. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You got your hook there. That's really a fascinating element for it. Yeah.
Exactly.
But I take issue, though. The North Pole is in Canada, isn't it?
Is it? All right. Whatever the heck it is.
Well,
it's yours, man.
I was always told that we were the home of Santa.
All right. There we go.
Probably the people in Greenland were told the same thing, I'm sure.
Exactly. That's it. That's right. That's it. I think, you know what? I actually think Greenland is the territory of Denmark.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's territory of Denmark. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
How much? Well, you've already talked about the research, so I don't know that I need to ask you that again. But are there any other things that you had to look into to develop this?
Oh, Donna, because I'm using in some cases characters I created, in some cases like Dutch Schultz and Queenie St. Clair, I'm fictionalizing them, but they were real people. And I had some familiarity with Queenie St. Clair. I had some familiarity with Bessie Coleman, the aviator, because actually I have a great book on gangsters of Harlem. So Queenie's in that book, and then I have a kind of a kids book that my kids had years ago for Bessie Coleman. And then Tesla, well, kind of everybody knows Tesla, or everybody knows the myth of Tesla. I guess that's even a better way to describe it, right? And so with that, I kind of felt comfortable, and even with Dutch Schultz, I did some digging into it using a couple other books. And so once I sort of assembled my notes and had some comfortability with the characters, and also knowing that I was going to depart from their actual lives, but some of this is actually based on an accurate or things that actually happened. Dutch Schultz,
they have to springboard from the reality.
That's right.
And then they can go off into any direction you like. But
precisely,
it's that reality grounding that kind of makes them so fascinating.
I think so. I agree. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. So exactly. So in the end, you certainly can't use this book as a historical document, and I don't want you to. It is definitely a novel. But maybe you'll be interested in reading about some of these folks in their real lives.
Yeah. That's the thing. That's the thing, to bring you back so that you do the research yourself too.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, underlying theme.
Well, I thought about that because I guess that's the big literate thing you're supposed to worry about in these books. Now, I probably
You're the first author that ever talked to me about theme, actually. I'm going to be honest with you. Now, I have a thing about theme.
Okay.
I'll preface before I let you answer.
Yeah.
To me, theme is everything.
Okay.
Like, it's always there, even if you don't know it's there as a writer. And you
I like
don't
that.
even need to know it's there as a reader. But I
Yes.
think it's always there, and I think it kind of drives everything. So now let's hear what you say.
I like. Well, I like
now
that.
that
I
I've
like
cornered you.
Now that you've cornered me, now that you've boxed me in the in Donna, but it just so happens. I'm glad you said that. It just so happens that one, as I mentioned, Henson had an Inuit or half Inuit son, and in reality, in the real world, he never saw that son once he left the North. In my story, because I'm a grandpa and I think children are important. In the book, what you always ask, what does the character want? What Henson wants, and I think this gets to the theme, is he wants to get back to his son. He realizes that he can't be an absentee father. I mean, that's not the word that they would use then, but that's the sentiment. And once I sort of put that in, and there's several parts of the book where we see he's making efforts to get back to the North. Then I thought, okay, so then the theme is really about family. The theme really is about reuniting. And once that then was there, and like you said, even though there's nothing, I mean, except for the fact that he's trying to get back to his son, there's not a lot of overt indications of that, but I think you're right. It really, or actually, I know you're right. It really helped me then to figure out in certain scenes what Henson might say or what he might do, only because in his mind, he knows he's got to survive because he's got to get back to see the kid. At this point, the kid is not a kid. He's a kid. He's a teenager, but he's got to get back to see him.
Yeah. And maybe discussions of themes seem a little highbrow for people, and that's why they don't really talk about it anymore. But maybe a better way to maybe a better word to pin on it is drive.
Yes, I like that.
Characters.
Right, that's right.
It really is, going to be the underlying theme of your story because it appears in every exchange.
That's right. That's a good point. That's a very good point. And the notion of, not every exchange is people yelling or shouting at each other, but every exchange, you kind of want to have a little bit of tension underlying there to make it right. Make it, our characters are two different people, so they want something that's not necessarily always the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you very much for that, Gary.
It was a good setup.
Now, the last thing on my question list, and you see, I'm not lying. I have a question.
No, I believe you.
The last thing on my question list is, what is your writing routine?
It used to be when I had a 9-to-5 job, which has been some time ago. But when I had a 9-to-5 job and I was a younger man and the kids were small, I mean, my grandson's small now, but my kids were small. I'd come home at night and I worked as I don't know if you call them this in Canada, but anyway, community organizer, and I worked in nonprofits and what have you, social change organization. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Yeah.
And so did my wife. And so sometimes this would trade off about who was getting home at what time at night. But when I would come home at night, and maybe the kids are in bed, or I help put them to bed, or read them a story, and what have you, I might work from 10 p.m. at night to maybe 2 in the morning, and go to bed and get up. And do it all over again. Now, of course, I'm lucky if I'm awake at 10 p.m. at night, right?
Oh God,
so,
yeah.
Let alone try to do
nothing
anything.
to do with our age, people.
Exactly. Exactly. So my routine now is, and also because I've been somewhat blessed, I think, in the last few years to have income derived from my writing, as well as I've worked a little in TV. I get up in the morning and I write. And for instance, right now I'm working on another book. And usually my goal is to meet my quota for the day. Usually the quota's around 1,200 maybe, but today I got 1,500 words. But usually that's it, right? Between 1,200 and 1,500 words. So what is that? 4.5, 5 pages, maybe double space.
Mhm.
If I hit the mark. Some days, as you know, the words flow as if
Oh, yes.
as if the
Reminds me of
angels
a
were
novel.
exactly
Reading.
right. Exactly. It was just writing itself. The angels were just speaking the words to me, and I'm merely their conduit upon which
Uh-huh.
the page. And the other days, it's like I'm carving each frigging word in stone. It's not. It's just
Yes. Yes.
So
And then try to erase it off stone.
right. Well, exactly. So
Uh-huh.
there it is. So there it is. So I try to meet the goal. And then, well, I was going to say, then I go out and play. Well, you don't go out and play. There's nothing to go out and play with now, given the lockdown or re-lockdown here in California. But then I just, or I go read something, or I start working on something else, and so that's usually my routine. But my routine specifically is to try to make my count. Try to make to try to make the word count each day.
Yeah, that's very disciplined, Gary. Very
Yeah.
disciplined. And it's funny because almost all the writers that I talk to have a discipline of some kind.
Right.
Like they really do. And you can't do this. You can't do this with any kind of fortitude if you don't have that discipline.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And even if it means you don't make the count each day, that's okay. You're as we know, it's about consistency. You got to just keep hitting
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's about consistency, just like exercising.
Exactly.
Same thing. It's about consistency,
There
Now,
you go.
going away from the list, I've got some questions of my own here.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Who are your favorite writers?
Well, that's an easy answer because I'm just going to name dead people because I don't want to get in trouble with
They
anybody.
can't argue, yeah.
They can't argue, and I don't get in trouble because they're not here, right? So it's funny. I just did something where I had to not quite answer that, but this one I'll just give three, I guess. So one is Dashiell Hammett because he was Dashiell Hammett and he's the godfather.
Dashiell Hammett is the name I was trying to come up with earlier.
Okay, there we go. Because he's the godfather of the private eye novel.
Mm-hmm.
And the second answer, second writer, and you wouldn't necessarily see it in my work, and I believe he has Canadian roots, would be Ross McDonald, whose real name was Kenneth Millar, right? He was born in California, but I think his folks, or one of his folks, was from Canada. And the Lou Archer books, which I stumbled upon as a teenager in my early teens or in my early 20s. I don't know, they're just something about his telling of the stories and I don't know, the psychological underpinnings in the stories and what have you. Talk about theme, right? Just such a masterful storyteller. Mm-hmm. And then third, only because I was thinking about him recently was, I guess maybe he's not that well read today, but there was a Black American writer named Chester Himes, and he wrote a series of, he moved to France at one point, and he actually wrote a series of novels set in Harlem with his two plainclothes cops, Coffin Ed Johnson and Gravedigger Jones.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Cotton Comes to Harlem.
Got more noir than that.
Than that, exactly. Cotton Comes to Harlem, all shot up. Several other, Blind Man with a Pistol. But his stories were really weird. I mean, and it's funny because the Harlem he wrote about was a Harlem he never really lived in Harlem, but he just sort of wrote about it as a sort of weird and strange place. And his stories are weird and strange and very absurdist in some ways. So I always was fascinated with just the way he told the story and the way he had these weird, quirky characters doing odd, quirky things. And so I've been thinking about him recently because I've read him some years ago, but I'm thinking about picking up one of his books and rereading it. Now.
Well, there's a big draw for quirk right now. There really,
yeah.
I mean, everybody's looking for it, and the truth of the matter is, I can understand that. Like, I'm really drawn to the random.
Yes.
I have this fantasy where I write this complete novel where every short chapter just is randomly cut off and leads to the next random thing.
Very nice.
Well, I don't know whether it's all that nice because I haven't done it yet.
Yeah. All right.
But it's just a thought that's been kind of
Right. Well, that sounds good.
percolating for a while, and because
Yeah.
that's kind of the way things are sometimes.
Right. Right.
You
I
step
like
out
that.
the door to check the mail and
Yeah.
walk down the street, and boom, a car comes out of nowhere, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
way leads on to way. So
Very good. I like that. Yeah, you got to do that. You got to do
yeah, I don't know whether it's worth spending the time on,
it.
but it just intrigues me,
Yeah. Yeah.
the notion of-
Absolutely.
yeah. It'd be like Jerry Seinfeld, where he says, what is it? It's a show about nothing.
All right. That's it. That's it.
So that's why I'm not sure it's worth any investment of time. It still intrigues me,
I know.
I don't know whether it could go anywhere. So Gary, you said that you're working on a novel now. What is it?
The novel I'm working on now is another novel set in the past, but this one is not a pulp novel. This is definitely much more a mystery story.
Mm-hmm.
It's set in Los Angeles in 1963, which is a very specific time period, but very specific time within the time period, which is to say, it's set in April of that year because Martin Luther King came to Los Angeles. He had been to Los Angeles several times before, but he particularly came to Los Angeles at that point to help raise money for what would be the March on Washington in August. Mm-hmm. And in my story, my protagonist is yet another character loosely based on a real life person. He's a freelance photographer. You ever heard of a character named Ouija?
I think maybe, but I'm not.
Ouija is kind of famous because he was this guy, Arthur. What was Arthur's last real name? Anyway, he was in the 30s and 40s in New York City. He was a crime photographer. Okay. And he kind of almost lived out of his car, but he had like a mobile photo developing lab set up in his trunk, and he would always arrive at the scene because he had police scanners going in his apartment, and he would take these gruesome, pictures of
yes.
dead bodies and what have you, right? And in fact, there's a movie with Joe Pesci. I forget the title of the movie.
Yes.
Some years ago, where he's the character he plays is based on this character.
Yes.
Right. So taking that sensibility of Ouija, I imbued my character Harry Ingram in LA with that. So he's a kind of a crime photographer guy. And what of course he stumbles upon is he's going to take shots or take pictures when King comes to town, because King spoke at a big stadium, big rally. But of course what he stumbles onto is that somebody's out to kill Dr. King, and that's what he gets involved in.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds pretty fascinating.
I think so.
When do you expect that'll be?
Well, it's under contract, so I have to turn it in at some point, and hopefully, well, the way it works now, who knows? Everything is messed up because of the virus, but probably won't be out till later part of next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it have a title yet, or work?
Yes, One Shot Harry.
One Shot Harry. Okay,
Yeah.
So you have to look for that in 21.
Yeah.
All right.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah.
Gary, thank you very much. You're just a wonderful interview. I really enjoyed that and having you on Dead to Rights.
Well, I appreciate it so much. It's been a real blast.
Dusty road, man alone. His vital signs go on hold, and I don't know what you've been told, but the years have turned my eyes gold. And I told you what you told me, we'd never be in the same boat for free. Yet it rides, let it rock.